Yeah.
Hey, how's it going everyone? This is the Anime Man. Let's open up with a joke. What's red, gross, and is really late? The answer is my girlfriend's period. And this video. I don't have a girlfriend, I'm sure that joke explained why. Anyways, period jokes aside, welcome to another edition of Joey's Seasonal Anime Roundup, this time rounding up the rowdy bunch from the spring 2016 anime season. First of all, I'm so sorry this video is late. I wanted to get this video out before Anime Expo, but life kicked my ass and I ended up getting this video out several weeks into the next season, so organization skills not even once. Anyways, if you're new to all of this is a series where I give super short and super concise reviews on anime series I watch from a particular season. In other words, you get to listen to my opinionated blabbering for the next however many minutes long this video is, so I hope you enjoy my voice. Keep in mind, I'm only going to be covering anime that ended during this season, so if you're waiting for a ReZero, Ace Attorney, or Sourcen or Myoji review, you'll have to wait for next season's roundup. Without further ado, let's get into the reviews. Ansatsu Kyoushitsu Season 2. Following on from a very good first season, the second season of Assassination Classroom brought back all the elements and added twice the amount of awesome to its story, character development, plot development, exposition, presentation, pretty much everything about the series in general. Not gonna lie, by the end of this season, I got pretty close to tears because Jesus fucking Christ, that ending. The feels were fucking real, dude. I think the one thing I love about Assassination Classroom is the way the series deals with its humongous cast. Unlike a lot of series that use a large number of side characters and end up neglecting half of the crew to focus on more important characters, Assassination Classroom manages to maintain the importance and relevance of all side characters without the viewer forgetting who exactly a certain character is. Not only that, but the story also manages to focus on important main characters while doing all of this in a sophisticated, constructed, hilarious, and epic way. The entire Assassination Classroom series spans for over 50 episodes total, but I absolutely recommend this series to any viewer out there, regardless if you're a shonen fan or not. Koro-sensei, never forget 2016! Boku no Hero Academia. As much as I hate to label this as the One Punch Man of spring 2016, there are a few things that make that labeling kind of unavoidable. For one, it's a superhero-themed shonen anime with lots of humor, action, and drama sprinkled within. Secondly, much like One Punch Man, this series was hyped by a lot of people through its extremely successful Shonen Jump manga series. And thirdly, much like One Punch Man, this anime is actually pretty decent in my opinion. It wasn't the best anime I've ever seen, it having a few minor problems along the way, but for a shonen anime, I think it was a lot more enjoyable than most of its caliber. The pacing and character dynamics were quite brilliantly executed, with Bone Studios doing their work to provide art styles and theme presentations which stood loyal to its original source material. At first, much like every other viewer, I fucking hated Deku as a character. And while I didn't end up exactly liking his character near the end either, concerning the story, plot progression, and character developments displayed within the series, I think Deku's presentation as a character was quite good as a whole. But seriously, Deku, stop fucking crying. What are you, a fucking fag? Bungo Stray Dogs. When I first heard of a fantasy action show referencing famous Japanese authors and literacy geniuses, the bookworm inside of me was having a fucking boner. He was like,
Yes, finally, the world will know of these awesome names in the most badass way possible.
and well, as much as there was a side of me that was preparing for the biggest disappointing train wreck to mark their name along the ranks of the rest of the 2016 anime lineup, I came out of this ride mildly satisfied. One problem I could see was the inclusion of weird pacing sprinkled throughout the series, like creating a side story to introduce Miyazawa Kenji's character in episode 11, even though the main arc had already ended and him as a character was hardly involved in said arc whatsoever. But through that, we were treated to some pretty decent animation, character designs, plot motives, and progression, which definitely didn't leave any kind of salty taste in my mouth. One thing to note is that the series relies quite heavily on famous names and works of both Japanese and, surprisingly, Western authors, and so if you aren't a lifeless bookworm like myself, you might not find this show as enjoyable as the rest of us. I like to compare Bungo Stray Dogs to a gift from your grandmother. It might not be exactly what you asked for, but with some time and persistence, it can be something worth receiving. Joker Game. While this series saw great success in live-action film form, many watched on with worried eyes as it stepped foot into the anime world. And I wasn't a little too sure at first either, with there being no clear overarching story or dedicated main character to rob the spotlight. I continued to watch on. And with all 12 episodes over, I can say one thing with certainty: this anime is pretty freaking awesome. Now, to be fair, this anime is certainly not for everyone. If you prefer your moe blob, comedy, surreal, and or strange anime, then this certainly won't be your cup of tea, as it deals with serious and surprisingly deep topics, not just concerning history and mystery, but also many psychological and human drama elements sprayed throughout the mini-stories. The members of the D Agency, who are all dudes, how convenient, can get a little confusing at first, and with some of the stories, you might have to watch them over and over again to understand and really take in and appreciate all the details. But if your attention span is long enough, you get to witness some awesome mindfuck mysteries unfold, jam-packed with badass action-packed psychological warfare. And as much as I love the D Agency, I don't think I'll be able to keep up with all that drama, so I'll just stick to the D Club, thanks. Kiznaiver. Here's a quick math question. A square has 4 edges, an octagon has 8 edges, a dodecahedron has 12 edges, but what has more edges than that? The answer is Kiznaiver, because this shit be too edgy for math, yo. I really want to praise Studio Trigger for creating a visually spectacular show filled with dazzling animation, cool character designs, and awesome execution of psychological and metaphorical elements caressed throughout like sprinkles on a cake. If only the cake itself was left in the oven for just a little more longer. The biggest problem with Kiznaiver was its constant attempt at forced drama. Using its extremely metaphorical and psychological elements in an attempt to pull at the viewer's heartstrings, it instead left me a little unsatisfied and quite confused. It certainly didn't help that even by around halfway through this show, we had really no clear overarching plot established throughout a rather shaky pacing sequence of plot and character development. And speaking of character development, I think that was one of the fundamental problems that Kiznaiver had as an anime. Like, we were introduced to these characters with their own unique personality, but the show never decided to expand upon why they all had such personalities to begin with the exception of a few in depth. Otherwise, we only really got a taste of it in episode 2 before the show decided to move on to its quote-unquote subplots, which by the end of the show became kinda half-assed. But I will admit this show had the best opening track of the season. Like, Jesus Christ, when is the full version coming out? I need it in my life. Koutetsujyo no Kabaneri. If I were to explain this anime in one sentence without using the words Attack on Titan, it would be, holy shit, this is literally Shingeki no Kyojin 2.0. Like, seriously, we don't even need a season 2 of Attack on Titan after this. This is literally it. I will, however, give props to Wit Studio and Araki Tetsuro for creating a visually spectacular action horror. I just love the raw and brutal violence and super appealing character and setting designs. Like, god damn, all of these people are gorgeous. One thing I do have to pinpoint about this show is the revealing abundance of plot conveniences. It gets to a point where it becomes a weird blend of plot armor and plot poison at the same time. Like, these characters are thrown into these perilous situations where death is happening all around and they're just surviving because. We unfortunately get little to no information on these conveniences and are instead treated to the "it's fantasy bro" treatment, which for a show that deals with a lot of plot development and all sorts of different plot gimmicks is not exactly the best move to make in my opinion. Overall though, I actually prefer Koutetsujyo no Kabaneri over Attack on Titan. I'm sorry Attack on Titan fans, but that's just what I think. It's like Wit Studios saw all the good points about AOT and upped the badass factor to an 11. So it's surprising to hear myself say that this show left me pleasantly surprised by the end. Mayoiga. What do you get when you cross Ito Junji with the Persona series? If you answered with an awesome sounding anime, you'd be correct on a single aspect, in that it certainly sounds awesome. But in the end, Mayoiga didn't quite live up to the expectations of what is otherwise a rather interesting setup for a psychological drama series. Because you know you're in for a bumpy ride when they decide to dedicate the entirety of the first episode just to introduce all the fucking characters. And then they decide to go fucking crazy with the plot water gun and spray it all over the fucking place. Because the biggest flaw I found with Mayoiga was its plot execution. Important plot points and exposition were just a little too free-flowing for most people to follow. Unless you sat through the entire series in one setting, it was very easy to forget things important to understand the overall story. And if loose-ended plot points followed by shoehorn character development and plot progression wasn't enough, the final episode ends up being a complete bum rush of unstable emotions and a bad attempt to tie all the loose ends of the story. Like, seriously, you can actually hear the foreheads of the animators slamming against the table in exhaustion as they desperately try to fit everything into a single episode time frame. But out of everything, the one positive I can say about Mayoiga was its use of multiple unreliable narrators, which I believe added an interesting psychological dynamic to the story as it unfolded. Too bad the unreliable narrator we ironically rely on the most is fucking retarded. Netoge no Yome wa Onnanoko janai to omotta. From the first episode, there was one thing that was going through my mind. Ah, fuck, another shitty harem anime, and with an RPG-like setting to- shit, dude! But as I continued watching, I was like, wait a minute. Maybe this is something different. And well, it certainly was. I was slightly deceived by the cute art style and generic light novel protagonist into thinking this was going to be yet another pointless harem anime. And surprisingly, what it ended up being was more of a slice of life romance anime. And I really emphasized the slice of life aspect, as there was hardly any proper romance from what I saw. Considering the romance began right from the first episode and carried on to the last with barely any noteworthy development, I can only describe this show as a slice of life anime with an overly eager for D love interest. The show sprinkled elements of societal outcasts and gaming lingo to try and appeal itself to the watamote crowd as much as possible, while also trying to keep the average viewers in with its mediocre vanilla romance. Or as I like to call it, two idiots dicking around. Overall, everything else about the show was pretty average. Was it an enjoyable show? Meh, I guess. But was it a good show? Meh. Sakamoto Desu ga? I've seen a lot of comedies in the past, but this is one of the few comedies that had me laughing out loud more than once per episode. I think these kinds of surreal comedies that satirically take themselves seriously just tickle the shit out of my funny bone. Sakamoto is by far my favorite character of the season, and a rather brilliantly created character in general. Obviously, he's a seriously OP character within the series, but it's so brilliantly executed where all the ridiculous shenanigans that happen around him and throughout the series kind of seem believable and natural to a point. I also just appreciate the rather unique style of comedy and never before seen jokes, which to a person who has seen a lot, and I mean a lot, of comedy-based anime, is a really nice breath of fresh air. Not only is the comedy brilliant, but the series manages to sprinkle in some drama throughout, where by the end of the series, it actually becomes quite emotional, where you almost forget this anime was a surreal comedy to begin with. The side characters were lovable and memorable, the animation done by Studio Dean is brilliantly executed and played out, and Sakamoto is just a handsome fucking devil, like, damn, son. Overall, if you love your surreal yet brilliant satire-based comedies, then this one is definitely one to check out and laugh your ass off to. Because this anime is absolutely the 100. Okay, seriously, is anybody even surprised that I decided to drop this piece of shit? While most people would look at scenes like this, and this, and this, and drop this shit harder than a dubstep bassline, I decided to continue watching for a few more episodes to see if this series could redeem itself somehow. But after around episode 4, I just physically couldn't anymore. While to those viewers who just want boob grabs, traps, and flashy mecha suits, this series probably was enjoyable for you. But to a viewer like myself who's seen all of this cliche shit hundreds of times, it was just so boring and expected to the point where it was unenjoyable. The main character was yet again another light novel default protagonist design who was apparently so fucking brainless to the point where he didn't suspect this to be a chick.
Really, nigga?
And even if I saw this anime as a standalone and not compare it to any other anime of the same caliber, it was still a mediocre deviation. And this was one of the more popular anime of this season? I'm sorry, is there something wrong here or am I just missing something? Overall, this season easily trumped over the winter 2016 anime season, which now looking at it comparatively, was truly a super weak season in general. Of course, I didn't end up watching everything from this season, and I'm sure my opinions on certain anime different from yours, so let me know in the comments below, which anime from this season was your favorite? Which anime from this season was your least favorite? If I missed an anime that I should have watched, which one should I watch and why? And what are your overall thoughts on the spring 2016 anime season? If you'd like to continue listening to me decimate last season's lineup of anime, I've left the link in the description below, so go check that out. And if you enjoy this kind of roundup, make sure to slap a like on it so I know you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next video.